Alright, everyone. It's time to get serious and talk about Dolores' gift from the new Disney movie Encanto. So, the question I'll try to answer today is whether or not it's possible for someone to hear some sounds from a mile away. To check this out, we need to understand something called the inverse square law. Ultimately, we want to figure out the reduction in the intensity as the energy is spread over a greater area that's 1 mile away. And then we want to see if the chorus would require superhuman hearing to be heard at that distance. You can start to notice that when you double your distance away from the source, the sound level gets reduced by approximately 6 dB. But why estimate when you can use math? From 1 mile away, using the inverse square law and referencing our measurement made at 1 meter away, we can find out that the 90 dBIL chorus at 1 mile away is still almost 26 dBIL. So the question is, does Dolores need supersonic hearing to hear a sound that's 26 dB? She'll definitely hear it, but the answer is no, she doesn't need supersonic hearing. It would be quiet for most people with normal hearing, but most speech and music frequencies would still be audible at 26 dBIL even without a magical gift.
All right, I'm back for part two, and I gotta say, I am not really sure if Dolores has a gift or not. So for round two, we're gonna analyze the sound of a pin drop. And there are two primary factors to the acoustics of a pin dropping that might give us a clue about how awesome her hearing is. The first one is the type and the force of the pin being dropped. And then the second thing we need to look at are the properties of the surface that the pin is being dropped on. So you've got this pin, and from some height you drop it onto a table and it makes a sound. The amplitude of the sound depends on the force of the sound source. And I gotta say, I just love saying that. It depends on the force of the source. A force is equal to a measurement of mass times an acceleration. We've got the mass of a pin that's dropping, and that mass is going to be something really small, like 1 gram. And then we drop that pin, and it has some acceleration as it's falling toward the surface of the table. And we can just use the acceleration of gravity in this case of 9.8 meters per second squared. So really what we're looking at here is a force of about 0.001 kilograms times 9.8 meters per second squared, which gives us a measurement of 0.0098 newtons, which is a measurement of force. There's another YouTube video that I'll link down below from some friends at a university. They measured it at 52 dB, and it looks like their measurement tool is about 0.02 meters or 2 centimeters away. And so ultimately, we were trying to figure out what is the sound level at 1.59 meters. Why 1.59 meters? Is that the average height of a Colombian woman? According to Google, it is. So what's the sound level of the pin dropping at the level of Dolores' ear? So it's 14 dB SPL, which, if you're curious, is audible to someone with normal hearing. 14 dB SPL is for sure a very quiet sound, not something that you would require supersonic hearing to be able to hear. We got to figure it out. Does Dolores have a gift or not? So stay tuned for part three. I'll drop that down as soon as I've got it all figured out. And we're back for part three, and we're finally going to talk about Bruno. She associates him with the sound of falling sand. How loud is falling sand? So falling sand has an approximate sound level of 50 dB SPL. So Dolores at best is standing in front of the door, listening to the sound through the door. A guesstimate at the sound transmission loss in the sound transmission class of a solid wood door, and they estimated it at about 40. So the sound that Dolores would actually be hearing of that falling sound would be about 10 dB. So really we have to take into account the fact that the sound has to travel to the door and then go through the door, which brings up the inverse square law from video 1. And you definitely need super hearing to hear a sound at minus 38 dB. I've got this theory going on. The sound of falling sand coming from Bruno's tower is a constant steady stream of sand falling from the top of the cave. So that would be a constant sound like shh. The sound of falling sand that she associates with Bruno is, and the sound there is even 10 dB quieter than the constant stream of falling sand. Of course she's not going to hear it at minus 48. We finally have some evidence that Dolores has super hearing. Now the counter to this is that she was probably old enough to have known Bruno and seen the falling sand. We're going to dive into one more thing that people keep bringing up. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Okay, we are back for part 4. The question is whether or not Dolores could hear Mariano when he's making plans for his proposal to Isabella. Based on the average height of the Colombian man, we could estimate that they're about 200 meters away from the Madrigal house at this point. So at 200 meters, if it's 75 dB at 1 meter, at 200 meters, the sound decreases by 46 dB, leaving us with Mariano talking to his mom at a level of 29 dB. So is that audible to someone with normal hearing? Yes. And so if you use 29 dB inside, including the distance and after going through a door from Mariano to Dolores, minus 11 dB. And this is definitely not audible unless you have super hearing. Look specifically at Dolores. Did you see that look? That look? So right after she tells Isabella that he wants 5 babies, Dolores gives him this look. I think Dolores didn't actually have super hearing. She already knew the Guzmans were coming over for dinner that night, so she guessed that Mariano was going to propose. And so this was her taking her chance to throw in something that might scare Isabella out of accepting the engagement. Mariano's plans, sure, you'd need super hearing to hear negative 11 dB, but I've got questions.